All right then. Since most of you should have that set up by now, we'll go over a brief introduction to Python. And even if you're familiar with Python, a little refresher never hurt anyone. So let's get into it. What is Python? Well, Python is a high-level programming language, and as veterans know, and as beginners will soon learn, it has super readable code. And I don't know if you've heard, but it's kind of popular nowadays, especially in the fields of data science, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. For anyone who wants to dig more into Python after this workshop, we have some links included in our package that we're going to send out later for those who fill out our feedback sheet. Now, let's dive into the details. The first thing we're going to cover are variables. So variables hold values so you can access and reuse them. The compiler, which is what we'll be running our code in, holds the variable in its memory as long as the compiler is running. Some common variable types are the integer, so it's like someone's age. That's equal to the whole number of, say, 20 years old. Below that, we have the float, a decimal number. In the same way, you'll see the variable height, and you can see that it's equal to a decimal number, say 160.3. Booleans are true or false statements. For instance, I'm utterly overjoyed to be teaching all this, so am I happy is, in all lowercase and with no extra symbols, true. When I wake up for online classes, am I happy is equal to false, all lowercase, of course. That's kind of important. Below the Boolean is a string. That's anything we'd recognize in kind of regular use as actual text, but you'll notice that it has to be surrounded by either single or double quotes. Now, that's also really important. The next thing we're going to learn about are lists. Now, a list is exactly what you'd expect. It's a variable that holds a list of items in a certain order. Even though the example here is all strings, remember that lists can hold any of the other data types we mentioned. Note that we know this is a list because of the square brackets, the strings inside, indicated by the quotes, and the commas separating each string. Once you've defined the list, you can add to it by calling the list, writing its name, and putting .append, open bracket, and the value you want to add. So like here we have list of names, .append, and we want to add Alex to the end of the list. The same way you can remove something from the list by calling the list and using .remove. The value inside the brackets will be removed from the list. So here, list of names, .remove, Bob, will remove Bob from the beginning of the list. So with those variables done with, we're going to cover operators. Now that you've got a grasp of those, these operators are the kinds that you'll probably see in math class, for example. And there are two types of operators, that is arithmetic and comparison operators. Arithmetic operators are the ones you'll all be familiar with. An asterisk or star for multiplication, a forward slash for division, the plus and minus signs for addition and subtraction, and a percent sign for modulus. So for those unfamiliar with that last one, using the modulus is like dividing something and taking the remainder. The comparison operators are the ones you'll see a lot in computer logic, and they'll always return either true or false. Comparison operators include to equal sign, and that's the symbol for equal to. So if you ask, say, 2 equal sign 2, that's like asking if 2 is equal to 2, which will return true. The exclamation mark before an equal sign is the operator of not equal to. An arrow going left before an equal sign asks whether the left side is less than or equal to the right side. An arrow going right before an equal sign asks whether the left side is greater or equal to than the right side. So the next slide, we have some examples. First one, obviously, 2 times 4 equals 8. Makes sense. For the second one, 6 plus 32, so 38, modulus 7. So dividing by 7, taking the remainder, should give us 3, right? Well, hold on. Remember that bedmaster rules still apply even here. So you do 32 modulus 7, which gives you 4, and then add 6, giving you 10. Then third example, 3 is not greater than 5, so the output when you ask that is false. If 3 were greater than 5, it would equal true. In the last example, you can see that the comparison operator goes last. So it evaluates or kind of adds up the right-hand side and left-hand side first, and then does a comparison. So whether the left-hand side, 13, is not equal to the right-hand side, 14. Obviously, 13 is not equal to 14, so the output is true. That's when you're dealing with numbers, though, generally. And to actually manipulate the strings to make sure everything in terms of spacing and ensuring all the characters you want to include are included, To do that, you need to use string manipulators. So the ones we have here are first the new line manipulator. That's \n, and that moves whatever follows it onto a new row. So as you can see in the output, you have so ... and the /n moves the next text onto the new line. The tab manipulator, which is \t, acts like the tab button on your keyboard and pushes whatever follows to the next indent. And finally, the escape character, that's just a backslash, and that's used when we want to include so-called illegal characters in our output text. For instance, we have to apply the escape character manipulator before quotation marks, or else it would end our string early, only including the words "so we added," and it would end the string, and that would cause an error. That's why we want to include the backslash quote around quotes. So we make sure that the quotes are actually included in our output text. With those manipulators over, we can get to some more complex things using some of the operators we covered before. So those are conditional statements. As the name suggests, this code will do something if the condition is true, and do something else if the condition is false. As you can see in the example, the computer asks if 5 is greater than 3. Because that's true, it'll go into the block under it and print 5 is bigger than 3. If 5 wasn't bigger than 3, it would print whatever is under the else block. Now, notice the keywords and indentation. If and else are in line, and those are your conditional statement keywords. Those are followed by the conditional statement for if, and then you have colons after both the if line and the else line. And the next line under that is indented. So that's the block that will run if that code is true. Like if 5 is greater than 3, then what's under that runs. Otherwise, what's under else and indented under else runs. So that's how the Python conditional statements work. Moving on to one thing that's a bit broader than just a conditional statement, we have functions. So functions are blocks of code that can be run. They can have parameters and output a result. They work kind of like math functions. f of x, for example, has x as a parameter and outputs something calculated using the value of x. To create a function in Python, we use the def, that is define, def keyword, and give it a name. To have parameters, we just have to add brackets. And just like the conditional statement, we end that line with a colon and indent the next line. And anything indented under that define line is the code that is going to be run when we call this function. The example here shows us defining the function add2nums with the parameters num1 and num2. So the line under that returns num1 plus num2, or the sum of num1 and 2. So that's kind of a really simple function just to give you a demonstration. And of course, we're going to get into some more complicated ones during the course of the actual workshop. Now, moving one step even broader, you've got modules. So modules are effectively pre-built functions that can be imported and used in your program. To create your own module, you have to save your program as a Python file, .py file, and then import it from another program using the import keyword import. Then you said insert name. So this file is named my module. And then you can also do, if the file name is too long, you don't want to keep repeating it, you can import my module as mm, and you'll use mm throughout the entire thing instead of saying my module every single time. So to actually call a function, you would use mm. So it's, again, will be imported from my module. You'd use mm.myfunction, or the function that was inside the my module Python file. Some common modules you'll see are the math and datetime modules, which give you even more math operators, like the square root function from the math one, or ways to get the ways to get and format the date from the datetime module. The example at the bottom there really clearly shows how the math module is like a separate Python file, and from that module you can get the square root sqrt function, input the parameter 25, and of course that would output the value of 5, because 5 is the square root of 25. So that all applies to whenever you make your own modules as well, that same kind of syntax. All right, so that's your introduction to Python. In those 10 minutes or so, we flew through everything from variables and lists to operators and string manipulation, and finally to conditional statements, functions, and modules. If a few things still feel a bit abstract, or if you're just starting to grapple with some of these concepts, the body of this workshop should give you some really nice practice and help cement some of your knowledge in Python. Oh, Oh, and of course, you'll get a bot from it too. Now, if nobody has any questions, Angela, take it away.
All right, so we'll give about 5 minutes to kind of leave time for people to ask questions. And if no questions are popping up, then we'll be sure to move on. All right, so yeah, thanks, Merle, for your insightful rundown on the Python fundamentals. And the first step is to create an account. And once you have a Discord account, you'll want to create a Discord application. So visit the Discord developers page. You may be prompted to log into your Discord account, but once you're in, this is what you should see. So once you're here, press the new application button in the top right corner as seen in the screenshot. And then you can play around with the name and description, but be sure to click the green button on the bottom right when you do so in order to change your properly save your changes. And if you'd like to test out your bot in a server we made just for this workshop, be sure to name it something appropriate, and you can always change the name later. Do notice that the client ID is highlighted. We don't need this just yet, but it's important to take note of it so that we can easily locate it in a little bit. So now that you've created a Discord application, the next step is to add a bot to this application. So head over to the bot tab using the menu on the left where it says bot with the puzzle piece, and then press the add bot button. Click yes, do it when Discord asks you if you're sure about bringing a new bot to life. And another thing to take note of is the bot's token. This can be easily confused with the client ID, but one way to distinguish between the two is that the client ID appears when you click the General Information tab on the left-hand menu, and the token can be accessed by clicking the Bot tab on the left-hand menu. Please don't close this tab in your browser because we'll need this later. So now we'll just wait for about 5 minutes just to make sure that everyone's had a chance to get their bot set up, and be sure to ask any questions if you have any.
All right, so yeah, we actually got a great question in the chat. What's a chatbot? So the answer to that is kind of simple. You might have seen, if you've been on a few Discord servers, you might have seen some of these around. Like, I don't know, Groovy is the first one that comes to mind for me. Basically, that a bot for our purposes is a set of code that runs off on a server, and the end result is that you have well, I don't know what else to say about a bot in your server, and that bot can respond to things you type in the chat. Usually you have some kind of keyword that we'll get to at the end. But it'll respond to things that you say in the chat. So Groovy bot, for example, is a music player. So you'll have like exclamation mark play, and then you paste, say, like a YouTube URL, and it'll play that. So the same way, you can customize a bot to respond to certain statements, and basically it's just well, a robot, that's what bot is short for, that kind of livens up your server and can do some mundane tasks for you, things like that. Answering Duo's question in the chat, check your email. It might take a second for the email to show up, but if it asks you to verify your email, it should just, the email should appear in your email inbox shortly.
Alrighty, so now it's time to create a Discord server or join a Discord server along with your bot. So for this workshop, we've made a server for you all to join and test out your bots so that everyone didn't have to go ahead and make their own servers. You can think of this as a test server where you can spam shamelessly. And for those who wish to test out in our server, the invite link will be in the chat. So once you're in there, be sure to react to the message sent by me6 to get additional perms. However, for those of you who may just want to use your own server or still want to learn how to do so, these next few slides are for you. You can create a server by either opening the desktop Discord application that you downloaded earlier or returning to the Discord homepage in your browser. Press the plus icon indicated by the exclamation mark as shown in the picture to create a server. If you're already in a few servers, the plus icon will be at the bottom of your server list. Press create my own in the screen that follows. And then skip this question. And then give your server a name. So once a server is up and running, you can chat with yourself or invite some friends to chat with you. Soon we'll be able to invite our bot to chat with us as well. All right, I'm seeing a lot of people pop in the server, which is great. And yes, you will be able to transfer your bot to another server after adding it to the one that we just offered over here. It's using the same method that we will show in just in a little bit, but the difference is you would be inviting it to your own server instead of ours. All right, so now it's time to actually add your bot to the server. So for those who wish to test out in our server and missed the link before, the link is still in the chat. And again, once you're in there, be sure to react to the message sent by me6 to get additional perms. It should be the bot tester perm.
Jump in real fast. Two things. You'll notice that me6 is a bot. Second of all, make sure you react with the PTC reaction that's already there. The thumbs up, I don't believe will do anything. So make sure you do that. All right, there you go. I think a lot more people just did that.
All right, so we need to create a URL that looks like this, but using your client ID at the end. So in your web browser, paste that link into the search bar, and then we'll have to go back to our application page to find our client ID. Make sure you are on the general information tab of the left side menu and that it is not the bot token. Take that client ID, copy it, and then paste it where it belongs at the end of the link. And note that there are no square brackets needed around your client ID. So then select your server and hit authorize. Visit the URL that you just created in your web browser, and then you'll see a page similar to the one that you see on the screen right now, and you can choose which server to add your bot to. Now, just regarding the question we got previously, if you wanted to use your own server, then you would click your own server in the drop-down list of servers to choose from. And then finally, we'll just stop here for another 5 minutes just to make sure that everyone has a chance to get their bots on our server or on their own server, and also ask questions. All right, so we'll get started again. So over at repl.it, oh wait, sorry. Yes, there's a link in the description. But for this workshop, the IDE we'll be using is REPL, just because it's a web-based IDE and no further installation is needed on your device. Also, running and stopping the Python program is just a lot easier here compared to, for example, VS Code. So we'll just stick with this for now because we're going to have to do a lot of reruns while testing out our bot. So over at repl.it, create a new REPL. And also choose Python as your language. Name your program, and if you leave it blank, then it'll auto-generate a name for you. So there's already a great Python wrapper for the Discord bot API on GitHub, which makes it a lot faster and easier to get set up with a Python Discord bot. To use this library, we can simply write import Discord at the top of main.py. REPL will handle installing this dependency when you press the run button, and the first run may take a longer time due to this initialization, but after the subsequent runs will not take as long because we handled this the first time. So we need to be careful not to share our bot token with anyone else because that token gives anyone who has it full access and control of your bot. And I don't think that anyone would want their bot hijacked. So to get around the problem of needing to give our code access to the token while allowing others to access our code but not our token, we'll be using environment variables. On a normal machine, we'd set these directly on our operating system, but using REPL.it, we don't have access to our system files. But REPL still allows us to set secret environment variables through a special .env file. And this is actually a little more convenient than .env files created on your own device because those are unsearchable by your file explorer or finder. So, if you were to accidentally close a real .env file on your computer and you needed it back, you most likely wouldn't be able to find it again. First, we need to create a new file called exactly.env. So to do this, select add file in the left. You have to name this file .env. It is very important not to leave out the dot at the beginning. So then open this file and add a variable to define your bot's secret token. So note that this is the second token we got while setting up the bot. This is different from the client ID that we used to add our bot to our server. So make sure that this secret token is on the bot tab on the left-hand menu. And the example here in this image isn't anyone's real token. So sorry if you're trying to steal it. That won't be possible. It's just a random number. So Dua, to answer your question, on the Discord applications page on the left-hand menu, there is just like a menu with general information, authorization, and like a bot tab. Make sure it's on the bot tab, and then you'll be able to see two buttons that say copy the token or regenerate. So if we head on to the next slide, it should look something like this. So below are some tips and tricks to ensure that this is set up correctly. The most important thing to make sure of is that there are no spaces on either side of the equal sign, as these spaces will be recognized by the system as a character that's part of the variable name or the value. So once you're done, be sure to run the program again to properly load in your environment variable. And if your program is already currently running, click stop at the top and then run again.
Yeah, to address some of the generally the questions in the chat, it doesn't explicitly have to be Discord_bot_secret, but like our lovely questions person in the chat, I think that's Shirley in there. Like she says, it can be lowercase, doesn't really matter, but you do need to have something there as the variable name because that's what we're going to use to reference it in the main.py file. As long as you have something is equal to, without spaces, of course. So something equal to, and then you paste your token there.
All right, so just to make things a little easier, I'll be sharing my screen and also typing at the same time so that everyone can follow along. So in my code, I've already imported the Discord library, and now that we've set up our environment variable, on the second line, I've also typed import OS for the built-in operating system library, which is needed in order to access our bot's secret token. Because technically, the .env files are part of our operating system on REPL. So the next few lines are going to look like this. So basically in lines 4 and 5, we create a Discord client. This is a Python object used to send various commands to Discord servers and also recognize the bot as a user. You can basically think of a client as the connection to Discord itself, which can keep track of things that happen, like new messages sent by other users. So next on line 7, we are defining an event for our client. And this line is a Python decorator, which will take the function directly below it, which is on ready, and modify it in some way. So the Discord bot is going to run asynchronously, which might be a little confusing if you're used to running standard Python. We won't go too much into depth about asynchronous Python right now, but if you're interested in what this is and why it's used, there's a good guide over at FreeCodeCamp. In short, instead of running the code in our file from top to bottom, we'll be running different pieces of our code in response to specific events. The program will be constantly listening and run methods as soon as the requirements are satisfied. And on top of that, an asynchronous method does not have to finish running in order for another asynchronous method to start running. So here we've just defined what kind of event we want to respond to and what the response should be. In this case, we're saying that in response to the onReady event, which is when our bot gets online successfully, we should output some information server side, for example, in the console on the right-hand side of our REPL, but not sent as a message through Discord. And just so we can see that the function has ran properly and that there's no errors with our bot. So basically, we'll print a simple connected message to say that your bot is here, and we'll also print our bot's user ID so that if you're running multiple bots, this will make it easier to work out who's doing what. Another thing to make sure of is that these two lines are indented, as indentation does matter in Python, and it is the only way that the program can realize that these statements are part of the method. So lines 12 to 15 are similar, but instead of responding to an onReady event, we tell our bot how to handle new messages with the message sent over here as a parameter. Line 14 says that we only want to respond to messages that aren't from us. Us as in the bot or your bot. Otherwise, your bot will keep responding to itself and trap itself in an infinite loop. And you can remove this line to see why that's a problem if you ever wanted to test it. And line 15 says that we'll send a message to the same channel where we received a message. So in this case, message.channel and then .send. And the content that we're sending will be the same as the message that we received. So message.content. And this message over here was a parameter passed in. So it's essentially an echo. All right, so the last two lines get our secret token from the environment variables that we set up earlier, and then tell our bot to start up. Be careful if in your .m file, you named the variable something different other than discord_bot_secret in all caps, be sure to replace this part with the variable that you named your secret token. All right, so we've reached another checkpoint. Once you're done coding, be sure to run the program by clicking the run button at the top and check to see if you've received a message in the terminal that says connected, like so, connected PTC test #8510. And if so, in our test server, is your bot online? And once your bot is online, feel free to spread yourselves out in the test channels to try it out. And be aware of one thing though, if one bot says something in response to, for example, your message, another bot may recognize the previous bot's message as someone else's and echo it as well. But other than that, there should be no problems. And once again, we'll give about 5 minutes to everyone to get this handled, and we'll get to customizing our bot just a little bit more. So as you can see here, I just typed the word echo, and then in the same channel, the bot has just repeated what I said. So to have your bot respond to messages on any channel, it has access to, you have the on_message function. So I'm getting a lot of pings from the Discord server. That means a lot of good stuff's happening. Okay, awesome. So the thing is, according to the documentation, each function that responds to a message that's sent has to have this on message name. Like Terrell said before, when you do a function, usually you can name it whatever you want, but in this case, because of Discord's documentation, you have to use this name. So with the code right now, we chose for the bot to respond to every single message sent, which is why we're getting so many messages in the Discord server right now. But we can also decide for the bot to only respond if the message is a certain keyword, which we will do right now, or if it contains a word or whatever you'd like. You can also add multiple types of responses if you'd like. So for this case, at the top, I'm going to be using a random number generator. So I'm going to import the random library. And then over here, now we just need to make sure that the message author is not the client author and not send something every single time. So over here, I'm going to replace all of this with return because we're not looking to send a message right now.
Actually, might be a good idea to ask people to stop their bots real fast so we can stop the spam in the server.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then once we get this part done, the bots will actually be selective about what they respond to. So that way we won't have a chain of bot spam.
Still going. All right. Anyways, so I'm going to create a random array of complements. And like Jerome said, these are also called lists. And I'm going to put you look great today as one. And to separate elements in a list, you add a comma. And then I'll add a third one, which is just Okay. There we go. So now that that array has been initialized, we are going to choose what we want the bot to respond to so that we don't get all of this spam. So if we're going to create a conditional, like before, it's going to be the message's content, but this time we need to set it equal to a phrase that we want. Let's say, in this case, compliment me. So our response will be a random element from the list. Oops. And then we're going to send that message into the channel. All right, so that's a possible example. You can name it anything you'd want though. As long as you keep this format, if message.content is equal to, make sure there's 2 equal signs, and then the text that you want to respond to or you want the bot to respond to, then it'll respond. You can also get rid of all of these variables and just send in something that you'd like on your own. Like instead of this, you can just say no or something like that. But in this case, I'm setting it to a variable, which is a random element from the array. So hopefully you guys have had time to test the first part of your bot, but now we're going to run our code and test out again, and we'll give about 5 minutes for this test. All right.
Real quick for Mayora's error, notice that the opening quotation is a double quotation mark, and the end one is a single. Make sure they're exactly the same on both sides. I know a few of you got similar errors. So if it's in general a EOL, that's end of line, while scanning string literal, that basically just means it can't find the end of the string. So make sure that both the beginning and end quotation marks are exactly the same.
To respond to some questions earlier, yes, I did delete the exclamation equals mark in line 15 and just change it to 2 equal signs. And to respond to your question, Lisa, in line 1 to 3, I just added another library. I imported the random library so that I could choose a random element from this array over here, the complements array. No problem. Also, everyone, if you could please stop your bots for now so that we don't get as many echoes, that would be great.
Roshini, what I noticed, and I noticed this a few times, for was it print connected, notice how the first quotation mark, as you've copied it here, is straight up, and the second one is slanted. That's generally happens if you like copy code from one place to another. That could happen, but make sure that both quotation marks are exactly the same. If they look even a little bit different, just like retype it, try using single quotation marks, anything like that.
I think that REPL, it's not that forgiving on just formatting. So if you were, sometimes when you copy paste code, it pastes like illegal characters. So just you can just retype it on your own using your own quotation marks, and everything should be okay.
For the error of random is not defined, make sure you import random at the top. That's line 2 right there. Yeah.
Oh yes, to respond to your comment, Sarah, yeah, I forgot to add remove the quotation marks around the variable response, just to show that as an example, but you're correct. Once I rerun it, it should respond with a random complement from the list. You don't have to specifically add this. The bots are going to respond. But yeah, you can customize that to anything that you'd like. And one last thing before you all can go is I'm just going to mention a framework to keep your bot alive. So the thing about this work is that if we want to make sure that our bot works, even when we close the REPL.it page, so we will use Flask, which is a Python framework to help with developing web applications. And you basically use it to create websites and web-based programs using Python. But you can definitely learn more about it once you get more familiar with the language. So if you go follow our, stay_alive.py. If you want to name it something different, just remember to reference the name that you gave it to it. You gave to it instead of the one we gave in the quick start guide whenever it is referenced in the code. And then like that, once you set it up, it should be able to run on its own for about 1 hour.
So that completes our workshop. You might be finalizing some of the last couple of steps, but I want to thank Angela for being such an amazing instructor for today's workshop, and also for Timral for helping out, and for Shirley for answering questions in the chat. So let's give her a warm round of virtual applause. So today's workshop was very fun and insightful for me, and I hope a lot of you thought the same. Timral and I would like to thank all of you for coming today. We will soon be sending you guys all a feedback form. It'll be in the chat soon. If you answer the feedback form about your insight on how today's event went, we will also be sending you information, additional resources, and some of those include the slides from today's presentation, and also our PTC Replit code base. So if you do fill out that form, you'll be getting additional resources, the slides, and a link to our PTC Replit code base. And also there are other announcements and details about upcoming PTC events that we can send you in our follow-up emails. But if you want to learn more, please go check out the Project Tech Conferences website at projecttechconferences.com, and also check out our Instagram account at Project Tech Conferences. We post a lot of updates and resources about our upcoming events there. So if you guys are interested and you guys have social media platforms, check us out there. On the blog section of our website, you'll be able to find a blog post and the video from today's workshop in a little bit. So yes, in the chat, Tim will put our website and our Instagram. So both of those resources have a lot of information about our upcoming events, information about our past events, and other really cool articles and features that you guys should definitely go check out if you guys like today's workshop. Thank you again, and we hope that you guys have an amazing rest of the night. Fill out that feedback form and you guys can get your resources.
Thank you all so much for your kind messages. If you still have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. And yes, fill out the feedback form and stay tuned for our following events.